The problem in Jammu and Kashmir started in 1990. Today we are talking of 2025. That means unabated proxy war has continued from the Pakistan side.
Can narrative warfare help overcome some of these limitations if you win the messaging?
President Putin is one of the wise leaders in the world today.
He's one of India's most controversial defense thinkers, a former army officer who now questions the very system he once served. For decades, he's warned that India isn't ready for the wars of tomorrow. Some call him paranoid, others call him prophetic. This is Pravin Sawney.
So when Jaishankar talks of multipolar Asia, you are talking of balance of power politics. You are talking of a zero-sum game. Please remember, any great power never showcases everything it has. It will always keep certain things hidden, which is what is called assassin's maze weapons. Deng Xiaoping was the leader when he made that famous statement, it doesn't matter whether a cat is black or it is white, so long as it catches mice. Our relations with China are not normal, with 100 billion in favor of China. And the Chinese today are telling us that, all right, let's sit down, we are willing to talk.
It's taken forever to get this going, but here we are. Praveen Sawney ji, welcome to Dostcast. Thank you for coming here. And, there's many things one can say about you. I'll save that for the intro that I'll record later on. But let's dive straight into the conversation, right? I have something from your own article in Force magazine, which you are the editor of, where you said that we have a national ethos of underestimating the Pakistani army. Now, you write this in context to the Kargil war, and you write this in context to something that Musharraf said. What is the historic basis of this understating the Pakistani army?
See, the first war of Kashmir, when it happened, and it got over on 1st of January 49, that time a military line was created, which was called the ceasefire line. Now, after that, India and Pakistan, they fought many wars. They fought 65 war, they fought 71 war. But in neither of these wars, the Indian military was able to obliterate that military line. In the 71 war, the entire campaign, the focus was actually on East Pakistan, which became Bangladesh. As far as West was concerned, there were clear instructions given by the then Army Chief, General Sam Manekshaw, to the Western Theatre Commander at that time, General Candid, that you just hold this front. That front was to be held. And after we know the 1971 war, with a bit of give and take of territory, as far as this sector was concerned, so the ceasefire line got a new name and it came to be known as the line of control. So the point to make here is that if in all the wars we have been unable to obliterate that line, that means there is something that the Pakistan army has been doing to ensure that what we call in warfare the operational level of war. You see, when we talk of war, there are basically three levels. One is the lowest level, where the tactics happens, where battles happen, where attrition happens, where we do the bean counting and we talk of, okay, I've got 100 tanks, you've got 200 tanks, so many people, so many this. This is attrition. Then you have an intermediate level of war, which is called the operational level of war, which is the campaign war. And it is more than the sum total of the tactical battles. And this is where the result or the outcome of a campaign is determined. And then at the top level, you have the strategic level of war, where the top military leadership and the political leadership, they are constantly interacting with one another for so many issues. So the point to make is that in all these wars, this reality must be understood by every Indian. We have not been able to obliterate that military line. It still exists as the line of control, which means at the operational level of war, now don't want to go in the details, so they have been able to hold it. So this is the reason that I keep saying don't underrate the Pakistan army. That's one point. Second point, which is more important and more relevant to our present context, and that is that your viewers would be aware that the problem in Jammu and Kashmir started in 1990, and in 1991, a lot of Indian army was inducted in Jammu and Kashmir. And since then, the Indian Army, since 1991, and today we are talking of 2025, they have been doing counter-terror operations. That means unabated proxy war has continued from the Pakistan side. That means on our side, we never had the capability, a war capability to deter them. Because if they felt that we have that capability to deter them, they would not be continuing with this proxy war. So when here, even today, when our senior officers they threaten Pakistan, it sounds very shallow.
So help me understand this. What is the disadvantage of being in perpetual counterterrorism operations?
See, counter-terror operation basically is very unlike a war. This is the reason that even the army calls it no war, no peace situation. Where when you talk of counter-terror operation, the initiative is with the terrorist. He will decide where he wants to strike. So rarely the initiative comes to your side and you work as small teams.
Mhm.
It is a very small team. Whereas when you talk of a hot war, you are talking of combined arms operation. That is an entirely different ballgame. Where you have your artillery, you have your armor, you have your various other things. They all have to work as one. That is war. And after war, then you are looking at the advances in warfare. That today, when we say that so much of technology is getting inducted in warfare, if you have remained focused for so many years, for decades, on only doing counter-terror operation, and that is where you have got your ranks, that is where you've got your status, that is where you've got your honors. So you are completely oblivious to how the warfare has advanced over the decades. You see, again in warfare, there are two things. One is the technology that is getting inducted, and alongside the technology, how to optimize that technology into what is called the war concepts. So they go together. If your entire focus has been, I mean, as a lieutenant, young lieutenant, if you were doing that counter terror operation, which is what is the job of a lieutenant or a subedar, even, because you carry a small team with you. If that is the job you've been doing, and still you are talking about as a full general, the same thing, and you are holding, a media briefing, and you are telling the press, we now in this particular thing, we have captured so much arms and rifles and stains and this. So you've only done that, nothing else. And please remember the key thing here: in counter-terror operation, we are losing our boys whose identity is known, brave young soldiers who have their kith and kin they leave behind, whereas the terrorist is a faceless person. So the point I always make is have a capability so that you deter the Pakistan military. So the Pakistan military, which is supporting this proxy war, then starts doing a reassessment of their, of how long they should continue or they should stop it. What should they do? For example, can you think of a situation where India will actually do a war with China? No, they won't. For example, we know that the Chinese have been sitting in East Ladakh since April 2020. We have not been able to physically throw them out from there. So, the point I'm making is that when you do counter terror operations, you get completely blanked out from warfare and the advances in warfare. Therefore, the nation is not secure.
Having spoken to many people from the military, they tell me again and again that modern warfare, quote unquote, is incomplete without narrative warfare, right? They often say that. When I saw you speak during Operation Sindoor, I saw that you went against the line, you went against the narrative that was percolating on our social networks about our supposed total victories against Pakistan. And you stood as a beacon of bluntness, of course, which you got lots of flack for. But then, if this is the reality as you stated, um, can narrative warfare help overcome some of these limitations if you win the messaging, quote unquote?
The answer is no, and let me explain that. There is no doubt that with the advance of technology, and specifically when we are talking of artificial intelligence, this is one factor that a lot of misinformation, disinformation, deep fakes, they can be created. And this has a lot of impact on war for the simple reason, and that is the second reason, that warfare today is on television. It's around the clock. Something happens somewhere instantly, anywhere in the world, you know what's happened at that particular place. But there is a big but here. And the big but is that information warfare can support warfare. It is not a substitute for warfare. Because at the end of the day, discerning viewers and the whole world is watching, as I said, anything happening here is known elsewhere instantly. So they know what is the reality, and they then also know that what is the padding on the reality, which is information war. So it's not that information war is not important, but information war can only supplement the reality. So the point is, content always matters. What is it that you have? What is it that you've been able to do? Because that is the world has seen in Operation Sindoor, for example. The world is very clear that the most important part was, and and there are reasons why it was, not to go in the reasons right away, unless you want me to do that. The most important thing was in the 4-day campaign that happened was the air war, which happened on the night of 6th, 7th May this year. That was the decisive thing. Why? There are reasons. So, but we seem to have completely whitewashed that because we don't want to respond to that. So, my point is, it's fine with your domestic audience, they are happy. But as far as the world is concerned, the world has noticed that, which is why the profile of Pakistan today after Operation Sindoor has shot up, both in military terms as well as geopolitical terms. And this is the reality you can't deny. So the point is that we have to be real. Yes, a padding is required, but you have to be first clear about what all. When we say all the military people talk of a war appreciation, what does it mean? It means a couple of things. Number one, you know who exactly is your enemy. Are you fighting Pakistan? Are you fighting Pakistan and China both? Are you fighting Pakistan with China supporting with its non kinetic capabilities only? What are you fighting? That is what needs to be known. That's one. What does he have? What is his morale? When I say morale, there is a very important factor in war, and that is called the will to fight. Does he have the will to fight? You have to know that. And then on your side, what do you have? And do you have the will to fight? And most of all, when we talk of India, Pakistan, a key factor always will be what is called the surge capability. What that means is that there should be a regular, unlimited supply of ammunition and spare parts so that you are able to do your campaign at a salvo rate, at intense rates of fire. Because if you have less ammunition, if you have your guns, or you cannot immediately replace your attrition of your aircraft or all those things which are there in war.
Mhm.
Because wars are always unpredictable. You can plan a war, but how it will go, you'll never know. So, therefore, a key requirement is that you should have a capability that supports that war. How much the enemy has, how much you have, this is a critical factor. So, the point I'm making is this is how you do a war appreciation. You don't do narrative buildings. Information warfare is a narrative building because narrative building is helping you project to your own people that you are the best in the world. But there is a cost that you are paying. There is a geopolitical cost to be paid. There is a military cost to be paid because you are emboldening your enemy. Enemy has understood your limitations, which is why I keep saying that I want the Indian military to be strong, and you can only be strong if you understand the warfare. What is the warfare? And that, unfortunately, I do not believe is the case today because, as we were talking earlier, when you spend decades doing counter-terror operations, then you are removed from the real stuff.
How is it that China and Pakistan, let's just say, even if they're working in cahoots or together, how have they equipped themselves for modern warfare in a way that we haven't? What have they done differently?
So you see, and I have been saying this and I have been writing, and nobody bothered to see that or listen to my or read my writings. Actually, this was a very decisive action that the government of India did, which was to remove 370 article from Jammu and Kashmir. Because after that, what happened was we got all the statements coming from China, from the top leadership right till the bottom of their military leadership, saying on every occasion that we support Pakistan's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And Chinese were not fooling you or fooling the world, they meant it, that we will support that. And alongside, what happened was that the two militaries started doing advanced combined exercises, which were completely missed here. So, a lot of capabilities were given to Pakistan. So, from 2019 till Sindoor happened, which is 6 years, they did a lot of areas where they worked very hard, and we saw the result in Operation Sindoor. So, the point is, if you keep your eyes shut to what's happening in what is China, understand China. China today is at the cutting edge of warfare. China just had its Victory Day parade on September 3rd, where they showcased a pittance of their capabilities. Please remember, any great power never showcases everything it has. It will always keep certain things hidden,
Sure.
which is what is called assassin's maze weapons. The weapons which will not be shown, the weapons which will certainly come as an operational surprise. So there was they were completely in cahoots starting 2000 this 5th August 2019, and it went unnoticed. Sorry, by a political analyst, by a government, by a diplomats, and by a military people. Sorry.
Here, you can have some water.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
So when you point out these things, you're labeled many things, and people obviously hate you for it. But there's something else you told me off camera. You said that India now has a projectionist foreign policy, right? I would like you to help me unpack what that means and what's the implications for our countrymen, for the rest of the world, and how is this projectionist foreign policy a deviation from the kind of foreign policy we've had before?
So I'll try and be brief and tell you that today the world is undergoing what is called a once in a century change. It's a very big thing. And I'll just tell you three things of the many that are happening, which are straight there and we need to understand them. The first one is, with the rise of China, the global geopolitics has shifted from transatlantic to Asia Pacific region, which is our region. Now, what that means is, when I say shifted, it means that this is the place now, Asia Pacific, where all the great powers of the world, which are three, there are three today great powers in the world, which is America, China, and Russia. They all have their interests now in Asia Pacific because this is the place of intense economic activity and intense political competition. It has become because of the economic activity and the rise of China and the rise of other nations also. It is not China alone, but China's rise has been spectacular as compared to India's rise. You see, so that is one factor, that today we have a great opportunity in foreign policy which we never had. And what is that opportunity? All this while, since independence, India was on the fringes of geopolitics, because the geopolitics was transatlantic. It was happening there, and therefore, when the Cold War was there, there were two great powers. There was the Soviet Union and there was America. So we decided, all right, we'll hitch ourselves with the Soviet Union. But we were on the fringes because the actual things were happening there in that theater. So today we have that advantage. If all the three great powers want India, Shouldn't India be thinking what is better for us today? And how do you assess what is better for us? By actually seeing how are the poor of India helped. We are a poor country. By Prime Minister's own admission, 80 crore of Indians, which is 800 million people, they are below the poverty line, they get dole money. So we have that opportunity and we are not making use of it. And what is the opportunity? The opportunity is in this global south that we talk about. It is the global south which is gravitating towards a new form of governance. That was the second point I wanted to make, that a the the geopolitics has come to our region. The second is that today you have two narratives which are entirely different. And this is something that India should take notice of. And what are those narratives? One is the earlier narrative of the Americans, which is about balance of power politics. I won't go into detail, which is what we have seen in the Cold War, we have seen in the unipolar world. But there's another narrative, which is what I call a new global governance system, which is about trade, which is about equality, which is about mutual respect, which is about indivisible security, which is about working under the United Nations, and where there are two great powers, China and Russia, supporting it. We are a global South nation. So when our foreign minister Jay Shankar says that I can both be in BRICS and I can be in Quad at the same time, well, it won't work for very long. But I won't go in the details unless you want me to go. The point I'm making is, why are you having a foreign policy totally hitched to a country, a great power, which is 12,000 kilometers away, when in the changed global geopolitics, you have two great powers. They are there with you in the global south. Why can't you consider more seriously having your strategic needs and your military needs from Russia and your non strategic needs from China?
Why do we align with America then?
Yeah. So there are a couple of reasons for that. One is the mindset, very big reason. And this is not to be underplayed. And what by mindset is meant is that we have that colonial mindset, that we are happy to be subordinate to a white man. It's a mindset which will not go away in a hurry. But we are not willing to be partner with a brown Chinese. That's one. Second is that over the years, our top elite have invested a lot in America. Their personal investments are there in America and the West. So they have their personal interests there. The third reason is, we say that today we are a 4 trillion economy, which is about 3.8 trillion economy. But this is a services based economy. And when you look at the services based economy, you realize that a big chunk of that is the IT sector.
Sure.
And of that IT sector, the dependence on America is massive.
Sure. We've gone from BPOs to IT companies to now tech startups in
You see?
Bangalore.
So that'll be a problem for them also. And our economy will take a major knock. So, but the point is, some hard decisions have to be taken. And what is the reason why you should take the hard decisions? Because a government with a vision, when it looks ahead, realizes the opportunity of once in a century change happening, then you are working for the posterity. You are working for your next generation. I'll give you one example. In China, Deng Xiaoping was the leader who opened the economy to the West. When he made that famous statement, it doesn't matter whether a cat is black or it is white, so long as it catches mice. Now, what that meant was, I'm happy for the capitalists to come to my country. But the people in China, the businessmen, they were very apprehensive. And what was the apprehension? The same apprehension that today we have. Our top people have, the industrialists have, so many of them. And that is that they will come and they'll take over everything here.
I was going to say that there is a great sentiment in the nation shared by everyone from the elite to even those who cannot read or write, is that one should be fearful of China, that one should be very guarded about China.
Yeah. So you see, the point is that what happened in the case of China, the Chinese, because they had to accept what Deng Xiaoping said, but they were willing to work hard. They worked very hard. They learned the ropes. So when the Americans say that they cheated us, Americans are wrong. Your capitalists cheated you. You hollowed out your manufacturing and gave it to the cheap labor of the Chinese. The Chinese learned there. The Chinese learned, and today they are the innovators. They are innovating, they are leading the world in green technology, and they are very much in big technology neck to neck with America. So Indians can do a lot, and mind you, India has a lot of talent. I have seen that, I have met a lot of people. What is required is a government with a vision, a government which is not projectionist. Projectionism basically means that we have a diaspora also abroad. The biggest Indian diaspora is in America.
Mhm.
So one of the things what happens is when our top leaders go to America, besides the official engagement, they engage with the diaspora because a message is being sent home that look, the leader is popular in the world. But this is what I call projectionist foreign policy. Foreign policy has to be which avails this opportunity. And I'm being very brief. It's a very expansive subject that you asked me.
Mhm.
But in brief, it is that there is today a new global governance system. And let me tell you, even our diplomats do not understand what this is. And this is my big worry that there is an opportunity and we are missing on this opportunity. In fact, I go to the extent of saying that when you have these China institutes here and so much of money is being put in the think tanks, focus on this area. Try and understand China's culture. China is 1.4 billion, the same population as ours. How is it that they could do a miracle? Why can't we do it? We have people who are good. We have hardworking youngsters.
What do you think are the socio-political factors or the socio-cultural factors that have perhaps stopped our growth? Did we miss the train on manufacturing? Is our mindset slightly more divided? Are we a difficult people to govern? What is the reason for this massive deviation in our growth graphs?
See, the biggest reason is education. One of the things that Deng Xiaoping in China, I come back to China because we can learn a lot from China. One of the things that he did was put a lot of attention on education. And today, China has perhaps the best education system right from bottom till top. They produce more engineers, they have more STEM graduates, even than America. And they are doing innovation today. They have so many people. And in fact, the people who are winning in America are also Chinese Americans, so many of them.
Mhm.
They are winning there. So, first thing is education. The government has to provide those facilities. You have to pump in money there. And education means you need education which is meaningful. I'm not saying don't go in creative arts, do that also, because that is also required. But everything should be meaningful. Now, if you want to change your history books, if you want to change things, well, it doesn't take you much anywhere. That's my point. Sorry. We are missing a great opportunity. This is what I keep saying that when people say that we are a civilizational state, actually, we aren't. China is a civilizational state, Russia is a civilizational state, America is a nation state, and we aren't. Why? Because we are a mix of so many civilizations. Now, if we are trying to banish the Mughal empire period from the history of India, then obviously we are looking at our Vedic roots, which are good. I'm not denying that.
Mhm.
But my point is what India is today, what I am today, is a sum total of what all we have. There is a culture that we have. That culture has brought us to this position.
I think in terms of this, the revival of Indic traditions and the rewriting of history to showcase more Indic knowledge and to systematically root out Mughal influences. is perhaps done to enhance the historical basis for the morale on which many Indians today stand. They want something to feel proud of. I don't know if it has consequences on how we see our foreign policy, but I certainly think that's what the case is.
See, I would not agree with that at all. It is not about foreign policy. Foreign policy is one part. Foreign policy, as I said, the essence of foreign policy in my thinking is how you can help. See, foreign policy basically is made on certain factors, and those factors are history, geography, or national power.
No, but I'm saying that
No,
you
I'm
said
just
that.
coming to
Yeah,
your
yeah,
point. I'm
yeah.
coming to your point. So we are not making use of the political factor in our foreign policy. That's one part which should help our poor. That's one. Second part is, won't we be more proud? Aren't we proud when our Indians do well outside?
Sure.
Why can't they do well inside our own country? Why? The reason is that we need infrastructure, we need education, we need so many things in our country. We need more than anything else a vision for the country, a planning. I mean, the Chinese are doing a comeback to Chinese because they are 1.4 billion like us. So much to learn from them. Why can't we learn? So, my point is that they have their 5 year plans. I'll just give you one example. The 14th 5 year plan finishes now in 2025 and now 2026. They will have their 15th 5 year plan till 2030.
Have we discontinued ours?
Sorry?
Have we discontinued our plans?
No. I'm just making a different point. My point is that what they had set out to accomplish in the 14th plan, 80% of that they have accomplished it. Why? Because they got the actual experts to make the plan. They got the people who knew what are our capabilities, what is doable, what we should do. It's not something, you just say that, all right, by the, 100 years of independence, there'll be Viksit Bharat, there'll be a developed India. Where will this developed India come from? I don't understand. I have not heard a single Chinese say that China is developed. They keep hopping, we are a developing company, we are a developing country. So my point is, we don't have to make idle boasts. The world will notice that what we are. And all I'm saying is we have the talent. We have, like the Chinese in our culture, it is our culture that we tell our young boys and our young girls, study hard. So we are industrious people, you see. But we need the direction, we need the planning, we need a vision from the government. That is my point.
What do you think about the fact that our current establishment often, like you said, makes abstract promises, Viksit Bharat and all of that, right? But when it comes to having geopolitical ties with China and Russia, we often operate in the realm of oil, trade, bilateral agreements, but we don't see enough cultural programs happening, right? Where there's an Indo-Chinese collaboration happening or visiting scholars and all of that. Like I said before, I sense that there is an increasing sense of suspicion of the Chinese man, that, or perhaps even that India feels like it is now ready to become a superpower. It is no longer interested in being a junior partner in a partnership which would happen naturally if you partnered with Russia or China.
No, actually, on the contrary, what you are saying, being a junior partner, we actually will be delighted if we are a junior partner of America. And let me explain why I'm saying that. Donald Trump started his term in office, second term, on 20th January this year.
Mhm.
We had no idea what his foreign policy is. But on 13th of February, our Prime Minister was there in Washington, and we signed the 13th February joint statement, which can be summed up in one word, and that word is Mission 500. Just to tell you, today the bilateral trade of India and America is $139 billion, and we have committed ourselves to the Americans that we will take this in the next 5 years to $500 billion. which means we have committed ourselves, we'll take the green technology, the big technology, the energy, everything from you. You see, because as I said, the reasons why we want to be the subordinate partner of America.
Mhm.
And Americans, they've always been, America doesn't understand a foreign policy where it has equals. I mean, this is no secret at all.
Sure.
Whereas on the other hand, when you see Russia, Russia, as the Soviet Union, has always stood by us. And let me tell you, President Putin is one of the wise leaders in the world today. He has resurrected Russia from the debris of the Soviet Union. And he stands by us because he is global south, because the Russians today have now focused their foreign policy on East. They realize they cannot do much in West and they're not interested in Europe. They're only interested in America if the Americans are willing to talk to them, not in Europe at all. But we are hitched on to Europe.
Hmm.
You see, this is what I say, that when this world order is changing, what is happening is I see a bright future for 80% of the world population, which is called Global South, which is the developing and the less developed nations,
Mhm.
which are aspirational, which are working under this new global governance system with support from China and Russia. I see them as the new world. And America and the global north, which is the Western nations, they are in sharp decline.
So you think that India is making a mistake by when the power is shifting to the global south, it is now aligning with the West and sort of isolating its own
No,
partners?
I'm not saying mistake, I'm saying blunder. I'm saying that our coming generations, they will not pardon us for all this. I mean, I have no role to play in government at all, but
Mhm.
I want my country to be strong. So, therefore, I always worry about these things, irrespective of people, what they think of me. I know India means a lot to me.
Praveenji, tell me more about how foreign policy directly influences the poor. Because when I think about foreign policy, in my little mind, I can never comprehend the direct implications of foreign policy on the country's poor. Because when I think about foreign policy or read about it, it often has to do with the country's defense capabilities or bilateral agreements. In some way, it sounds so diplomatic and formal and held in offices that the implications coming down to the poorest man in the country don't make sense to my head.
I'll explain. Any country that wants to help its poor needs development.
Hmm.
All right.
Sure.
You need manufacturing for a country like 1.4 billion. Services will not be enough. All right.
Hmm.
And for development, you need peace. And for peace, you need military power, a deterrence, what is called a military deterrence. So, as I said, in the non strategic sectors, which is like infrastructure building, which is like manufacturing, the Chinese are willing to help us. In the
Mhm.
strategic sectors, like defense, like energy, like power, like artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
like all the big technologies, the Russians are willing to help us and they can help us a lot. So, the point to make is that if our nation has to develop, if the benefits have to go to the common person, they need jobs, they need education, they need infrastructure, they need peace. And this is where foreign policy comes in. It has a very important role, it has a critical role to play. But you have a point. And I'll tell you your point now. I'll explain that also, what you said, that it used to be a elitist thing. That is
Mm.
what you are saying.
Sure.
It was elitist when India was on the fringe of global geopolitics. Because at that time it was about that I need Soviet Union to make my case on Kashmir at the United Nations. See, so that is the elitist thing.
Mhm.
But today it has changed. This is what I'm saying, the once in a century change. So we are in that position today that instead of one superpower, one global hegemon, America, today there are three great powers. And the two great powers want us. They want us in BRICS wholeheartedly. They want us in SEO wholeheartedly. But our mind and our brains, when I say our, I am talking of the government.
Mhm.
They are with the West in America. See, the problem, what has happened is, as I said, the world changed in 2012. And how the world changed, that also your viewers should know. Because of the rise of China, President Obama ordered what is called the pivot to Asia. What that meant was that 60% of the US military will now be shifted to the Western Pacific to contain the rise of China.
Mm.
You see? So the world changed, which is why, because the economic activity is happening here, the Westerners here, and we are in the middle of it. We are sitting right here in the Indian Ocean region. So for us, the opportunity was okay. If today there are three great powers instead of one, and the two other great powers have an entirely different philosophy, the world that they are creating, why can't we partner with them? Why can't we cooperate with them? But the problem is that Modi government came to power in 2014 May. At least for so many years, and even today, people in this country are oblivious that there is something called a new global governance system. And I'll give you an example why I'm saying that. We have heard the External Affairs Minister make two statements. He talks of, and repeatedly he has said this, a multipolar Asia is necessary for a multipolar world. In other words, what he's saying is that we are also, India is a pole, it is a power center in the multipolar world, just like China is. But in the new global governance system, the concept is entirely different. What is the concept? The concept is that it's of trade, it's of development,
Mm.
which is what the Chinese are doing through the Belt and Road initiatives, and the Russians are on board. The thinking of the Chinese, they have aligned vision. So the concept is of trade. Now, if you have to do trade, it is common sense that trade requires that each nation should be free to decide with which it wants to do trade, with which country does not want to do trade. That is strategic autonomy. In other words, in this thinking, there are today 193 countries under the United Nations. They all must have strategic autonomy. So when Jaishankar talks of multipolar Asia, you are talking of balance of power politics. You are talking of a zero sum game. Because your thinking is the colonial thinking. So we have to change that. Then we talk of the other thing is we talk of security.
Mhm.
Now we are today looking at absolute security from the Chinese. What we are telling them is that the border is the central to India-China normalization. Now, why they have come here is a different story. I don't want to talk about that right away. You see, why they have come here, there's a reason for that also.
If you could just briefly throw a glimpse on that.
Yeah. So, very briefly, let me tell you that once we removed 370 from Jammu and Kashmir on 5th August 2019, the other thing that we did was we made two union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Union Territory of Ladakh.
Correct.
And immediately the Chinese protested because in the Union Territory of Ladakh, and the Home Minister said this in the Parliament, that Akshay Chin will be part of this.
Mhm.
And they immediately protested because physically Akshay Chin is with them. So let me also give you the date. On 13th of August 2019, Jay Shankar, as the foreign minister, traveled to China. He met up with his counterpart Wang Yi to explain to Wang Yi that yes, we are making maps now showing a union territory of Ladakh, but this will not impact on the situation on the ground. They said, no, we do not accept that. This is cartographic aggression.
Cartographic aggression.
Because today, if I take your word, tomorrow your government may not be there. So the evidence is there. So because India did not do much, so they came and sat down on East Ladakh.
I don't know which program or which company manufactures the map images of India. But very often, our editors sometimes make mistakes when they're editing the maps of India in a video. They source those maps from the internet. Most of these maps of India don't have POK, and some of them don't even have certain parts of Ladakh or the path that China has supposedly taken over, right? It seems to me that if they've said we've done cartographic aggression, they've already responded by diminishing our maps on both sides.
See, again, I'm not going in the map making. I'm just giving you the reason why this has happened.
Mhm.
So, because India did not listen to that, so after that, they came in East Ladakh to their 1959 claim line, and they've been sitting there since then.
Mm.
Now, the point is that border is a very complicated issue. We'll need 2 hours to explain that.
Hopefully, next time you will.
But the long and short is here that instead of looking at absolute security, why don't we look at relative security at a concept which is called indivisible security? What that means is think of a situation tomorrow if instead of having 2 live borders, one with Pakistan and one with China, there was a possibility that all the 3 countries could be inside one tent and all the 3 countries, it is all doable. This is the concept of indivisible security. I'll just explain this. You come inside the tent and then you have your communication channels open, formal as well as informal, and you discuss your difficult issues.
You're saying that 3 countries will come together for security, where our sworn enemy Pakistan will come together for security.
I am saying that if we want to take India forward, I am worried about India's rise. India's genuine rise. I'm not interested in narrative making. All that I'm saying is it is important and this we owe to our posterity, to our children, that we need peace on both the borders.
But isn't it an impractical solution? Do you ever think that even our countrymen will get together with Pakistan? Forget China, because you have Nepal in the middle, and there's obvious, ethnically we look different. At least with the Pakistanis, we look similar. There's such massive tensions that this will. It's a good idea, but I don't think it'll ever be implemented.
Prime Minister Bajpayee, immediately after Kargil, Musharraf was invited. We spoke. Things went wrong. That's different matter. L.K. Advani traveled to Pakistan. So the point is that all the governments have tried to have peace and they also want peace. In fact, Musharraf gave his 4-point formula, which the Manmohan Singh government was seriously considering till Musharraf fell out of power. He got out of power. So the point I'm making is that when you have a neighbor, a difficult neighbor, and that difficult neighbor is willing to talk, it is better to sit down and discuss. Now, if our position is, and which is our position, the government's position, that Jammu and Kashmir is ours, so the only thing we can talk with Pakistan is terrorism or how to get POK back, then obviously it's not possible.
But I think you're the only person who can perhaps even think about peace and say it on a public platform, because most of the experts that you see and meet, right, they're very against sitting down with Pakistan. They have clear evidence that many people will believe, right, that it is a proper terrorist state whose only function, right, at least the military leadership's function, is to attack, undermine, and maim India, and often act as a vassal state for America. I don't think it is looking for any solutions.
No, I am not denying the situation.
Mhm.
I am denying that there is a history. If you were just speaking on this subject, I was happy to give you the entire history also,
Mhm.
where we have come from and where we are today. My point is very simple. Sit back and think. Let all the Indians who want India to progress sit back and think. What do we want? Do we want development? For that, peace is required. Do we want that? Do we want progress? Do we want to avail the opportunity that geopolitics provides us today? Think about all these things. Then, once you realize, and this is what we want our population to be educated, we want this country to progress, we want this country to rise, then you will realize that yes, we want peace. We want peace with Pakistan, we want peace with China. What is the compulsion with China today? It's a very simple thing. Our relations with China are not normal, but Our bilateral trade with China is as much as our bilateral trade with America. It's $139 billion a year, with 100 billion in favor of China. And the Chinese today are telling us that, all right, let's sit down, we are willing to talk. So, my point is that negativity will not get you progress. People say that he is this agent, that agent. I am nobody's agent. I have invited people, come and see my place where I work. And I'm saying it on a public platform. All right. I just want my country to be strong, and that is only possible if you have peace in the region. There's no other way.
Because of constraints of time, I think we will end right around here. I just want to say a few things before we end, Praveenji. Number one, you were nothing like the tweets I read about you. I found you incredibly articulate. You have a very specific view of how things should be done, and that's fine. I'm glad you stand up for those. I'm sure when this podcast airs, there's going to be a huge chunk of the audience hating on you and perhaps hating on me as well for saying something that is very difficult to swallow, but unfortunately is the truth. A second thing is, I want my viewers and listeners to know that for those of them who are not familiar with your work, that you run Force Magazine, which is a defense military strategy magazine where you publish blogs and you also have a YouTube channel, right, under the name of Force India. Since you were talking about how you don't like saying subscribe to that, I will say that I was able to read some very incisive blogs on that website, and it's a good resource for unbiased, non-narrative, straight talk about security and geopolitics that I think you can check out. And thirdly, of course, thank you for traveling all the way. Thank you for your time. I hope to have you back on very soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks a lot. Thank you.